Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, vote counting's underway in Kenya. After a largely peaceful day of voting, millions turned out to have their say in a race between incumbent leader Uhuru Kenyatta and longtime challenger Raila Odinga. Also, South African President Jacob Zuma survives a secret ballot vote of no confidence. The House had been hoping to oust the scandal-prone leader, but the anonymous ballot vote would allow ANC dissenters to pull the plug, but it wasn't to be. And in Democratic Republic of Congo, the streets of Kinshasa are empty as political opponents of President Joseph Kabila launched a two-day general strike in a bid to turn up the heat on the leader to set an election date. But first, ballot counting's underway in Kenya. Its electoral commissions praised the execution of Tuesday's general election, saying that it went ahead with minimal hitches. The most fiercely contested race is that between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his long-time challenger Raila Odinga. There were long lines throughout the day as voters turned out to the 40,000 polling stations, despite concerns in the run-up to the day that the exercise could prompt violence like that seen a decade ago. Our Julia Steers followed the day and brings us more.
Here at this polling station in Nairobi, they've finished counting the presidential ballots and have moved on to the other races. Now, voting wrapped up here about 2 hours later than the polls were meant to close, and that was largely due to the big crowds that turned out to vote today. For the most part, things in Nairobi went smoothly. There were some small skirmishes at polling stations and some delays that were due to the failure of biometric technology to ID voters, but the Electoral Commission said that this was dealt with swiftly. Now, outside of Nairobi in northern Kenya, there were longer delays of up to 10 hours, and this was due in some regions to heavy rains and in others to insecurity. So voters are still at the polls there. They're expected to continue to vote overnight, and their votes will be tallied tomorrow morning. The Electoral Commission has said they are still hopeful, however, that they will be able to announce a winner in the next 1 to 2 days. Now, technically, they have 7 days to declare a presidential winner, but given Kenya's history of post-election violence, particularly when there is a lag in announcing the winner, there's a lot of pressure within the country and from the international community to announce a winner as soon as possible.
Julie stays there for us. Now, Kenyatta and Odinga also faced off in the 2013 election, when the president beat his rival with just over 50% of the vote there. Odinga's leading an opposition coalition this time around and is hoping that it will make all the difference. As Julia said, voters may just have to wait only a few days to know who their next leader will be.
After independence, Kenya's first president was Jomo Kenyatta. The first vice president was Oginga Odinga. More than 5 decades later, the two favourites in this poll are their two sons, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Kenyatta, who's 55, was elected in 2013 despite being indicted by the International Criminal Court. He was accused of orchestrating post-election violence in 2007 that left more than 1,100 people dead. But in 2014, the ICC dropped the charges, citing the disappearance of witnesses and lack of evidence. This week, he urged Kenyans to remain calm.
No matter the result of this election, we must stand together as one people. Above all, we must reject intimidation. We must reject violence or any attempt to divide us.
During his tenure, Kenya has experienced steady growth, but his critics say he failed to tackle corruption and the country was hit by several major jihadist attacks. His main rival, Raila Odinga, who's 72, came second in the 2013 election. Before the poll, he said he feared the authorities would try to prevent him from winning.
Attempt to try to use the security forces to intimidate voters. All this is aimed at suppressing turnout in our strongholds.
Odinga has been in politics for decades. In 1982, he supported a coup attempt. For that, he spent 9 years in jail. The charismatic leader became prime minister in 2008. This is his 4th attempt at the presidency. Many voters are expected to cast their ballot along ethnic lines. Odinga's ethnic group, the Luo, is the second largest in Kenya, but has yet to produce a head of state.
We turn to South Africa now, where members of Parliament of the ruling ANC whooped and cheered on news that their leader, President Jacob Zuma, had once again survived a no-confidence vote. It was the ninth such decision put to lawmakers since 2009 and failed 198 votes to 177. It needed 201 to succeed. Zuma's taking his survival of Tuesday's motion as a sign of the strength of his party.
If you talk about people who are representing the majority and the public in this country, it is the African National Congress. Now, they believe they could use technicalities in Parliament to take over the majority from the ANC. It's impossible. They can't do it. We represent the majority in the public.
Well, Zuma's leadership has been dogged with scandal and accusations of graft and inappropriate use of influence. Those trying to unseat him had hoped that the unprecedented use of a secret ballot would allow ANC dissidents to move against their leader without fear of retaliation. But it wasn't to be. And Zuma's critics say that his survival puts the country's fortunes at risk.
Jacob Zuma must do the right thing and resign because he clearly has lost the mandate of his party. People today voted to say Jacob Zuma must go. What we've got to do now is focus on building an economy for all South Africans. The issue today for all of us is that South Africa must look at this result as a positive result, as a moment in our nation where across parties, the right thing, people felt they must vote for change. And even though Jacob Zuma may have just survived this motion, the journey towards 2019 has just begun.
Well, Aisha Ishmael joins us now with more. Aisha, so it was a secret ballot, but do ANC members who may have voted against Zuma have anything to fear going forward?
Well, they shouldn't, because this vote is precisely what it says, a secret ballot. But ahead of the no-confidence debate, there was an African National Congress National Executive Committee meeting where the party warned their members not to vote against Jacob Zuma and not to side with the opposition parties. They said that these members would face disciplinary measures and that they could also lose their jobs. And in this present economic climate, who would want to lose their jobs? So while the vote was a secret ballot, a lot of ANC members who probably wanted to vote against Jacob Zuma decided not to for fear of being found out and losing their jobs.
Following on from that, Aisha, considering just how much criticism of Zuma there's been from within his own party, why do you think he did survive?
Well, the African National Congress has always said that while there are serious divisions and deep divisions within the party, they have said that they will deal with Jacob Zuma in a manner in which they deem fit. They've said they will decide if and when and how Jacob Zuma should be removed. And they're saying that this will be decided at their elective conference, which will take place in December this year. They said they would not allow the opposition party to dictate to the ANC how and when to deal with Jacob Zuma.
So is Zuma right? Was his survival of the no-confidence vote a testament to the strength of the ANC in the eyes of South Africans? How do voters likely feel about the party after this?
Well, there were thousands of people who took to the streets in Cape Town today and in Pretoria. And those in Cape Town that I spoke to, the anti-Zuma demonstrators, said that they had had enough of Jacob Zuma. They've had enough of his corrupt practices and that Zuma must go. And after the outcome of the vote, they said that while they were disappointed, they are preparing for 2019. And they say that they will then punish the ANC for keeping Jacob Zuma in power so long.
Thanks very much. Aisha Ishmael there for us in Cape Town. Now, in Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday, the political opposition started a two-day general strike in a bid to put pressure on the Electoral Commission to publish a new electoral schedule. Critics of President Joseph Kabila, are keen to see him step down before the end of the year. Thomas Nicolon has more.
The Congolese opposition wanted to send a strong message to the government with these two consecutive general strikes. The first was taking place today, and it's fair to say that it was not a complete success. Kinshasa was less busy than usual. 2/3 of the shops approximately were closed. There was less traffic than usual, but the city was not entirely paralyzed. So was this general strike a success, a failure? Well, everyone has an opinion about this.
I agree with the general strike because I want the authorities to know that we don't want them anymore. We want change.
Both the opposition and the government are misleading us. We don't need them. What we want is a general election.
The opposition wanted to have a general strike, but for what? We need our country to go forwards. We need to move on and to organize the elections.
Now, outside of Kinshasa, there were a few incidents in Goma and Lubumbashi, but in most of the country's big cities, life went on as usual. The political crisis is deep in DR Congo, and the opposition is afraid Joseph Kabila will never step down, and that is why they are organizing general strikes regularly to demand the publication of the electoral schedule as soon as possible.
Thomas Nicolon there reporting for us. Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
We are journalists, and normally you have to listen to us, but you have things to tell us too. Maybe you've experienced a dramatic event, or you've got something important to say. You want to make a difference. That is why we created The Observers. Now, the first step is very easy. You get in touch with our team. Send us your images, tell us what you've seen. And then it's our job to get your voice out there, on our site, on social networks, on your mobiles and tablets, and on TV, of course. You can appear in our weekly show via webcam. Or perhaps we'll come see you in person, where you live, in your country, your town, and we'll work together on a report for our investigative show, The Observers Direct. So you get the idea. This show is your show, your way to get your voice out to the world.